I discovered him when I was a kid. So popular as a comic actor. Then we say, oh, he became a director. The first film that we know that he's a good director was Can't Drink With Me. It was so entertaining, and we learned to say, oh, he's a good director. He changed from actor to a director.
咁我對當代中國作家好有興趣，所以我都有收集好多關於呢類嘅詩集。所以我就從佢好多話題傾，佢每次嚟香港都上去我辦公室傾關於中國作家。咁當時佢傾得特別多就係關於老舍嗰啲為人同埋作品。
He is considered as the one who wrote genuine Northern Chinese people's life, that really the working people's life. So he was in that kind of position in the Chinese literature.
因為胡金銓呢，事實咧對北京即係舊北平啊嗰啲荒物咧，佢好感興趣。佢成日同我哋講以前北京一啲小食啊，北京嗰啲人力車啊，嗰啲嘢。咁佢本身老舍咧，嗰小食嘅題材咧，全部係講北京嗰啲舊北京嘅。咁所以佢當時咧，佢就問我，佢話你成日去北京，你飲過嗰北京叫做豆汁兒啊，豆子啊。
After 49, they're all kind of exile from China, so they're more practical than we thought. I think making movie first of all is to make a living.
I met him in 1950s when we were both working in the Voice of America in Hong Kong. He was an editor and working with Mandarin version of programs, and I was a producer and broadcaster for Amoy dialect programs. Voice of America was producing programs in the way of trying to let the people in China or in Southeast Asia about how communism will be. The programs at that time was recorded in Hong Kong on tapes, sent it to Washington. From there they broadcast it, and then in Philippines relayed it toward China and Southeast Asia. When he first came to Hong Kong, he worked over there together with Li Hanxiang. And that was how he started to get involved with Hong Kong's film industry.
Painting a billboard and posters, and on the set, doing the set backgrounds for the film shooting. King Hu himself is not only a painter, but also a calligrapher artist. He wrote all his title credits in his films. And beautiful handwriting, beautiful calligraphy. They were kind of exiles from China, so they're making a hard living in the studio. And so 7 of them, they become, kind of sworn brothers with each other, actors, lots of actors in it. And Song Chun-shou, a director who moved to Taiwan afterwards, they belong to the 7 brothers together, a kind of a rat pack, Hollywood style, And of course, Li Hanxiang was the very first person who got a chance to be a director, and he had the eyes and to appreciate King Hu's acting talents. So when we were kids, we know King Hu not as King Hu, as Jin Quan the actor. His whole name is Hu Jinquan. Then he changed his English name to King Hu as a director. He was a comedian. And he's such a great comic sense, and he talked in a very, very clear Peking style dialect. Very, very beautiful realization of the language. We loved him. We loved him when we were kids, say, oh, Jin Quan, oh, he's in the movie, he's that wonderful comic guy.
我们走吧，走。对不起，你们的话我全听见了。
哦，那你
我要到奉天县去告密。来吧。
他们两个人的因为他们两个是好像兄弟一样的，其实呢，李导演呢是胡导演刚开始拍的时候是做他的等于副导演跟执行导演。我记得第一次我拍戏的时候，去片场实习，就是拍李导演作为总导演，但是那个胡金铨是执行导演的一部电影叫《玉堂春》。那个演员就有乐蒂呀，有赵雷呀，都是很出名的那时候。那么我第一天去片场实习，我那时候还是一个南国实验剧团的学员，那么我都不懂。第一天去到那边打完光啊什么的，有拍一个wide shot 呢。那他们说当时因为有现场收音，还有拍板啊什么的，所以呢。我就只听到导演一叫 camera， 我就走出来演戏了。但是他那个拍板还没有响，我就出来。那么，但是胡金铨导演呢，对演员很有耐心的，他也不会骂我们。我做错了几次，他都没有骂我。这是我跟他的第一次的渊源。那我们留下很好的印象。到后来我拍大嘴侠的时候呢，是因为经过这个audition 经过那个试镜，我跟另外一位演员一块来饰演这个大醉侠的角色，结果是由邵逸夫先生亲自点名要我演这个大醉侠。那么大醉侠一开始拍的时候是叫醉侠，没有个大字，拍的时候叫醉侠，因为胡导演呢很喜欢看京剧，他平时讲话呢也好像北方人讲相声一样，很幽默。那么他拍戏的时候呢，就他喜欢看了以前有一个叫九盖的一个京剧，他就把它改成醉侠。那么当时他心目中不是找我演的，因为以我的经验，以我的年龄，都没有那个风霜味道。我相信他自己演会比我演得好很多。但是因为当时要捧一个新人出来，可能要为了邵氏将来要拍很多武侠电影，所以就把我选了去演这个大醉侠。那么李翰祥导演呢是从台湾回来了以后，我们合作很多。他呢是李导演是一个非常懂得电影，就是从头到底，从编剧，从道具，从布景，从任何一样东西他都很熟悉的，任何一环都难不倒他，甚至于个发型。两个人都是对于这个电影有非常高的认识。我觉得胡导演呢，对于有些他要求的东西比较执着一点，但是李导演呢有时候会因为环境的许可或者他需要的话呢，他可以转变。那但是胡导演我一定要做到那样子。这是两个人在那个创作方面有一点不同的地方。
in terms of concept of films, I think Li Hanxiang believed more in making film as an entertainment. King Hu more making film as an art.
可以说，我跟郑佩佩，还有陈鸿烈啊，在大醉侠里边能够有这样的成绩，绝对不是我们自己的，绝对是胡导演给我们的，只有在他的手里，我们才发挥到这样的这么大的作用，到现在还是有人叫我大醉侠，几十年以后。他们还是记住这个角色，只要跟我差不多同年龄的，跟我那个年龄层，也许小时候看过我的电影的人，还是叫我大醉侠。有一天我在Shaw Brothers 门口。坐车，那我那时候也没有车，就是坐那种公共汽车什么的。我看见刚刚好那个Sir Ran 他的车子出去，他就叫我上来上车，就叫我上去。那我就坐在里边。他说：“哎，我看了你们的试片，就是看了大醉侠。”他说：“好。”他这样子说好。
我的手，哎，开门呢，哎呀，吓得我，哎呀，开门，哎呦，我的妈呀，哇，
哎，干什么呢？
不但拍这个戏的时候呢，他花了很多功夫，因为他是最后的那个 ending 啊，那个打的什么东西，他要求很高，但是后来因为可能公司嫌他拍的比较慢一点。甚至于要求他，假如说10天之内不拍完这个最后那场戏的话，就可能要把他换掉导演。这我相信蛮 hurt 他的，蛮伤到他的自尊。也许是因为这个关系，他拍完大醉侠，他就跟邵氏分开了，到台湾去另起炉灶。
I think the reason he left Shaw Brothers is he was been so interfered along the creative process, also not being respected as a director, and also been a work been too many times been recut by the studio. He find it very hard to keep his integrity as a director.
有㗎，因為我哋由5、6歲啦，就做呢個所謂黑白片、粵語片嘅動作片，但係嗰陣時咧冚唪唥用舞台嘅方式嚟做。咁知道拍到胡導演拍《大醉俠龍門客棧》嗰個時間，由佢創新之後咧，就變咗係武俠兩個字出嚟。有武俠兩個字出嚟之後咧，我哋做武術指導嘅，做武打演員嘅，就要跟住嗰個潮流走。所以我哋學咗好多嘢中國功夫，我哋細路仔嘅時候係學嘅戲劇功夫。我哋再做武術指導嘅時候咧，要學中國功夫、日本功夫、韓國功夫又包括西洋嘅 博筍，我哋都要學過好多好多嘢，先至可以做到武術指導。話俾佢聽，我哋做戲劇嗰啲呢，就韓英傑呢，都係同我哋一樣嘅，係學戲劇嘅，就所謂係北派，就係北邊嘅嘢。咁呢，我哋出身由11、12歲之後呢，出嚟做武師呢，就有好多動作嘅，花關鬥啊、刀啊、劍啊，呢個呢，就係用古裝嘅嘢套翻落去胡導演嘅武俠世界。佢嘅武俠呢，飛嚟飛去啊，跳嚟跳去啊，全部都係戲劇入邊摘出嚟，再演變佢真實。戲劇呢係假嘅，佢將個假嘅就演變成武俠世界真實。我哋做戲喺五張台搭起咗一個關鬥，一個空翻落地下，佢可以喺盒裏喺個樹頂嗰度一個關鬥又落翻嚟，嗰個意識係一樣嘅，同戲劇上邊嘅嗰個一個就係假嘅，一個呢用假嘅變到佢成真嘅。
We saw him, how he used Chinese opera, the way that people's appearance, first of all, appearance and the eye line movement. And also the painted face is pretty much a concept that he used in his films, because the painted face cover too much of the inner emotions. More everything was revealed outside. You know, you use painting face to categorize the type of people, even their personality, their age, or their social, you know, their social status. The characters are with less emotions, less inner feelings, more like a painted face. It functioned in the Chinese film opera. And then he used a lot of the Chinese film opera things, the choreography, the concept of fighting scene as a dance. He used pretty much in his films too. A lot of fighting scenes are more abstract as opposed to Zhang Ci. You know, Zhang Ci's fighting scenes are more gory and bloody and very violent. But in King Hu, you hardly see any blood. You know, it's all, you know, it's kind of an abstract sense. You kill people or, you know, fighting scenes. And then the movements are always very beautiful. Like choreographed, very much like those in Peking opera.
中国明朝景泰8年，也就是公元1457年，那时候太监专权包揽朝政，并且控制了2个最大的特务组织——东厂和锦衣卫。这是锦衣卫。
To him, Ming Dynasty provided a lot of this kind of things, conflicts, fighting, infighting, all these kind of things. And that gave him the kind of material to come up with stories.
明朝嘅晚年咧，佢即係都幾貪污腐化嘅。即係佢嗰個對中國咧就比較即係對物質嘅追求比較大嘅，咁所以好多人咧覺得明朝呢個朝代咧，從而家晚期嘅明朝嘅朝代，從而家中國大陸嘅嗰個社會咧有啲相似，即係笑貧不笑娼啊。
At this time, the 007, you know, the kind of a spy genre is really popular. And he thought about the history context, actually wanted to use it as a metaphor for the contemporary situations in Taiwan, China. You know, a lot of investigation, a lot of white terror. A lot of persecutions from the kind of investigation office and spy system, all these kind of things. And he's so interested in historical research. Those eunuchs, they form a very sophisticated spy system in trying to eradicate all the dissidents, all the people who had criticism towards the royal court, and then frame many people who are really loyal to the emperor.
好多人咧就即係即係樣樣都識一啲，但係胡導演咧佢係好尖嘅。譬如咧，我打個比方，譬如胡導演咧對中國嗰啲美食咧，佢咧真係好知得好透徹嘅。佢曾經就明報月刊寫過一系列嘅文章，叫做《中國皇帝吃什麼》。咁呢個中國皇帝吃什麼咧？我覺得過去都未有人有研究佢咧就有研究嘅。
攞西方嘅技術融合中國嘅美工，佢每一個鏡頭都係一幅畫嚟嘅，一幅圖畫嚟嘅。佢係有佢嘅創意，佢諗住嗰個拍出嚟呢個鏡頭，佢 background 係咩景，佢都冚唪唥佢有思維，佢係兩樣嘢合成一個出嚟一個好導演。
In Chinese painting, there's a phrase called 留白, means leave a white space to make the paintings look good. If you watch carefully, his scenes in the movies, there's always these kind of things. He studied it and he used it onto the films.
His films use a lot of moving images. His images is like it's not following the image and make a flow. It's more like many Hong Kong critics pointed out that it's like you walk with the characters. It's like, you keep a parallel relation, the camera, keep a parallel relations with the characters' emotions, So the characters always occupy the same space in the frames, but the background kept moving. And it's like a Chinese scroll painting. So long you have to move with each scene, It's like that. So I think he adopts a lot of concepts of traditional Chinese painting in that. In case of Li Hanxiang, it's the same. They both have taste in the Chinese scroll painting, but Li Hanxiang is like, he's more interested in the scroll paintings, the kind of very secular, ordinary people's life. He enjoying people's, how to live and then how to realize their life, and then more, more fun of, activities, events in those little paintings. But King Hu are not interested in those. He interested in the point of view, watching is like simulate an appreciation of painting from a viewer point of view.
他是最早使用那个 storyboard 的人，他就会画那个画面，因为他画图也画得很好，他画好一个画面一个镜头怎么分，他告诉大家他会要求怎么样。那么对于演戏演得好的人，有经验的人呢，比如说杨志清啊、杨志石那些人呢，也许他就跟他一讲戏，他就演给他看，他基本上同意就可以了。像我们这种新人呢，他就会一方面解释给我们听，另外一方面有时候他会示范一下他的动作，做一下那个动作给我们看。那我们就是不要模仿他的完全像他那个样子，但是要就是能够吸取他的神髓，就是他的样子，不是完全要学他的动作，而是要学到他表演的内涵。
黄米汤，黄米汤呀，黄米汤。不管是花雕、高粱，一杯在手，我什么都忘。世间多少伤心事，唉。
那么现在这班人都是做武术指导了，都是，其中有一个很出名的就是程晓东。程晓东就是被眼睛射瞎掉那个，在那个大庙旁边，就是偷看里边被陈鸿烈一剑 这样子一个射中眼睛那个程晓东，现在是一个非常出名的动作演员动作导演，跟徐克啊他们一起合作，现在甚至于上次北京的奥运会 opening， 好像他也是参與那個動作嘅指導。
我呢就由4歲喺上海嚟到香港，咁樣我哋嚟到香港係好窮嘅，係冇錢嘅，咁樣呢，就我媽媽呢就將我呢就送咗去我師傅度，咁我哋去到師傅度呢就學咩呢？就學京戲。中國嘅而家嘅國粹就係學呢樣嘢嘅，咁咧就話唔係淨係學打關鬥啊，唔係嘅，要做京戲，要做文戲啊、武戲啊，都會做好多嘢嘅。咁我喺我師傅度咧就6年，我喺我師傅度6年。之後咧，我哋喺呢6年嘅時候咧，我哋拍咗好多好多電影，功夫片又有，但係做童星，做細路仔。咁啊有6年咧，就喺嗰度做咗好多年呢啲電影工作咧。咁我哋由11歲就識胡導演，但係胡導演呢，就由我哋6、7歲佢就識我哋㗎啦，因為佢哋成日嚟睇我哋啲京戲，亦對我哋有印象，所以到11歲嗰陣時佢可以用我哋去拍戲。我哋啲師兄弟入邊呢，就啱啱我話咗俾佢聽，我哋好多呢 Jackie Chan 啊、三魔兇啊。袁華啊、袁秋啊、袁彪啊，而家喺法國一個叫袁奎、袁輝啊，都而家係做導演嘅，做大一頭嘅。咁換句説話咧，就咁嘅情形之下咧，我哋呢班人咧就各人有各人嘅導演睇中，就我咧就係胡導演睇中咗我。
唱了半天，連你喝酒的錢都不夠。
今天我不喝了。
今天有沒有醬肉烙餅吃啊？就是你饞，我也要吃醬肉烙餅啊！
細啦，嗰陣時太細啦，邊度有諗到嗰陣時，淨係細路仔就係希望食好啲，有啲好嘢食，同胡導演一齊就好成日。胡導演帶我哋出去食飯啦，帶我哋去呢度啊，去嗰度啊，日日都跟住胡導演食飯。嗰陣時小朋友就係諗就係最緊要食。龍門客棧咧離開咗香港。就去咗台灣，咁拍佢龍門客棧。龍門客棧拍完咗之後咧，佢咧就會拍俠女。俠女有一部戲咧，有一部分嘅戲咧就會擺咗嚟香港拍，嚟到香港拍，都係嗰個城門水塘，咁換句説話咧，咁我哋嗰陣時咧已經做緊武術副指導啊，做緊武師啊，就喺嗰陣時做緊啲嘢。咁佢一翻嚟咧，佢係指定要用呢班人。咁我哋又去幫佢拍呢個俠女，有好多唔好講邊個啦，好多就拍武打嘅時候咧，就交俾嗰個動作導演或者動作設計或者武術指導佢哋去拍嘅。胡導演唔係，佢做咗個 storyboard 出咗嚟，佢嘅思維想點樣做係佢嘅思維，唔係武術指導嘅思維。我哋幫佢做指導，係佢話要我想咁樣。咁話俾你聽，我機器擺呢度，我想入邊嘅咩感覺，咁佢叫我哋去開會，我想1、2、3、4、5呢5個鏡頭，呢一組鏡頭，我想咁樣嘅。咁你哋武術指導係只係輔助佢，所以武俠世界係胡金銓嘅。點解會講呢句説話呢？就因為佢每一招每一式都係佢嘅思維，係我哋做武術指導呢，就係幫佢設計嗰啲招式嘅啫。唔係去幫佢擺機器，佢嘅 camera 擺邊度，佢嘅思維一早就有咗㗎啦。佢想嘅嘢係話俾我哋去聽，我哋幫佢去做啲設計入邊嗰啲動作嗰個環節啫。所以胡金銓嘅電影咧，佢所有每一樣嘢咧，都係傾呼自己嘅思維同埋佢嘅功勞。同我哋咧，我哋做武術指導咧，就同佢做最好嘅。都唔需要去太多嘅做法，就佢吩咐我哋做乜嘢，我哋只係幫佢用刀啊劍啊嚟代表拳啊腳啊，佢需要我哋幫佢套招嘅啫。包括 camera 擺邊度，我哋都唔需要理嘅。佢套咗招，佢會擺好 camera 擺邊度。 冇胡金铨3個字，就冇吳明才。咁喺嗰個時間呢，我哋拍咗每年拍10幾部嘅電影都拍。咁我相信嗰陣時嘅電影，香港電影係賺錢嘅。咁我亦賺咗啲錢。咁我知道我應該請我師傅嚟拍一部電影。我哋認為話，我而家可能有少少能力可以去做一部電影。咁我請我胡導演，我嘅師傅翻嚟幫我拍呢部戲呢，我哋有商量過嘅。我話我呢部電影係限1年。我話我由籌備至到出 A 級片，我係俾1年時間。咁佢話唔需要，半年就夠。係導演俾同我講，係半年6個月就夠。佢話你籌備，我唔理你。睇景拍攝至到後期做完，真係6、7個月就完咗㗎啦。
在龙门客栈开拍之前，我们大概有3个多月的时间。他那一次同时招考了6男6女，特别把韩英杰武术指导从香港请过来，给我们练这个所谓的武打的基本功。那另外又请的高明老师给我们上表演的课。就是上午上武打的基本功，下午上表演课，大约有三个月的时间之后，才宣布，就是这些我们在我们的新人里面要给你什么角色。其实刚开始的时候剧本还没有拿到，是先拍定妆照，定妆照拍完了之后，才给剧本。给剧本以后，等于说，他个别的跟你这个就是沟通一下，现在你演的这个角色，你应该要怎么样？他没有问。其实我们当时因为都是新人，也没有说自己的那种意识，自己的那个主观，就是完全听他的。甚至那个《龙门客栈》那部戏。从头到尾都是在他示范的情况下，我们照着表演出来。在侠女里边，有自己觉得可以真正的投入，然后。把自己的一些想法或者表演的方式那么表达出来。因为侠女的时间也长，拍摄的也长，所以能够让我在每一次拍完一部分戏之后，再有很长的一个空档的时间，我可以去回想我原来拍的，跟我在以后怎么样拍的。因为他有一个状况，就是说他差不多跟你谈了这个角色之后，他都会把分镜表做出来交给你。那你再根据分镜表的这个，因为他的分镜表有个特色是图文并茂，不是只是文字的。就每个镜头它怎么样拍法它已经用线条勾勒出来，所以你很容易了解他所要的。
他每天有一个所谓分镜的，今天拍20个镜头，1、2、3、4到20个。第一个是冷血的，开门那个判的移动的，他的镜头都说明了，说明之后他 OK 就交给你了。但我开门按过开门的地位都是由我决定。看了他给他看到，他不来看，他应该了解他坐到旁边就知道这位置应该怎么样。舞蹈已经知道他，所以开门了，反正他不来看，他就看最后的画，看电影上的画面，他 摄影机摆在那里，他就坐在旁边，他的摄影机位置都不来看的。他这样，我感觉他了解这个，而且那个蓝色啊，50米或者100米或者25米，这放在这里的画面怎么景，他脑子已经有了，他知道。
To the people who wants to put the money into shooting films for him to shoot films, they will hesitate. Right? They know that he's good, but they don't know when the film can be finished. That's one thing. Then shooting his films may cost a lot of more money. For instance, at that time we were shooting films, most of the films, especially Cantonese films, were shooting with 30,000 feet of negatives to cut to 10,000 feet or 9,000 or something. But King was using 60,000 feet of films. Then he put his time also studying other things. Then he go to Europe, go to America, making speeches. So all this takes time. And the filming was shooting, stopping, shooting, stopping. So to the financier aspect, King was not thinking about that.
People were afraid to work with him. You know, there are many jokes about how he shot the film back to back in Korea, that, you know, he opened his window and said, today the cloud is not beautiful enough. So today is a day off.
吴导演的工作，我们进行的时候的确比一般导演比较tempo比较慢一点，可是我们的要求也比较多一点，我们摄影方面要求多。比方我说这个，我们说芒草花摆的如果呀，芒草花，我们拍的是很漂亮，因为这个场建场的时候啊，是我负责的。我们那个布景搭的也是我在经过参与的，我把那个毛从野外把毛草拿来种的建的，这样很漂亮。到秋天的时候，好漂亮的白的毛花。后来我们拍了1个2个月之后，没有了，这个白的花没有了。白的花没做，我们不仅是美工做啊，怎么都不像，用泡利龙啊什么都不像。不像我说，我们跟吴导演说，我们民意再拍吧。吴导演说好，我们民意拍，就这样。
He's the king of moving images, and he's the king of editing too. It's very good, delicate cutting style, and I think people who paid so much attention to the delicacies of how to make films compile together, and how to use the Chinese film operas, drums and gongs. Which is very important in making the rhythm of Chinese film, Chinese opera, and then the well sense of using music incorporate with the rhythm and the cutting style. I think it's very unique. He's interested in making an impact with his editing. Not, is again compared with Li Hanxiang. Li Hanxiang cared more about the flow like Max Orfu of Lola Montes, you know, the kind of Vincent Minnelli kind of a flow. Very soothing and very beautiful. But King Hu's editing style with staying moving images is all concocted to make an impact on the audience. No continued, you know, the kind of a continual concept of Hollywood films, you know, the kind of reasonings of, and then the characterization. So sometimes you find the structure very chopped, a lot of eliminations. it's become very elliptical, and some characters disappear along the narrative structures, and it become very unimportant. So it's a very unique structure, a unique narrative style that show that he cared something very much, and some of the very Hollywood influence concept totally irrelevant to him. Taiwan never had a very strong local film system. King Hu was invited because he was the one who made Come Drink With Me, the film that's really popular among young audiences. So the company union, a distributor, they followed Li Hanxiang's format and invite King Hu to Taiwan to make films. And at this time, people started to be very conscious to make Taiwan films. Technical sophistication, more sophisticated industry system. They both wanted to build kind of a studio style. Especially Li Hanxiang, he brought in his whole idea of building a film industry with him. He brought in technical people to Taiwan. He built big sets, big studio, and he wanted to make genre films. And this time, Taiwan films were local produced films or more primitive. Still small screen, black and white, no stars. They brought in all this kind of studio style. And so King Hu actually wanted to follow the same format. He wanted to imitate Li Hanxiang. He encouraged Sha Rongfeng of the Union distributor to build a huge set, which been used afterwards for, I think, more than 10 years, making hundreds of films within that set. But every buildings and every hotel, inns and shops were literally made from King Hu's drawing, and he supervised himself of every process of building the whole set. He brought kind of aesthetics, the sophistication in film style, and the sophistication of using a very subtle metaphor to tell story, and then influenced so many, generation afterwards. You have An Li's Crouching Tiger and Hidden Dragon, very blatantly say that it adopted many styles from the Dragon Inn and A Touch of Zen. An Li never denied the fact that he wanted to pay homage to King Hu, and the bamboo forest fight. And then you look at those popular films now, the commercial films. It's remake after remake of King Hu's classics. Dragon Inn. Cui Hart make a Chinese sword play. The series of Chinese sword play. He adapted many styles from King Hu. He actually learned the research format from King Hu of his taste in history, in those, the costumes and the fighting scene, even the, the famous walking scenes, character walking endlessly. Those kind of images, influenced so many generations afterwards in terms of the history of the industry. But then also, he's the one who really made Chinese films known to the foreign countries. The Dragon Inn was so popular in Korea. I think it was box office champion then in Korea. And then he opened up the market for Chinese films in Southeast Asia, in Singapore, in Philippines, in Indonesia, and all these countries. It's a pity that it never succeeded in the States. Of course, you have A Touch of Sand winning the Cannes Awards in 1975, and then made a name among some of the French intellectuals interested in his films. Really a big boost. When I was in college, I remember, it's a big boost of morale. People are so proud that film can be recognized in international big film festival. So his contribution in his career to the whole industry so immensely realized. When we thought of a cinema, King Hu's the first name that popped up to our minds always. Is more like a giant. So I think his contribution to us is so many different aspects. He's the one who really elevate martial art films genres from a very vulgar entertainment commercial value to a level of art, a level of artist contribution, and those kind of things that can never be eliminated in our memory.